My kitchen was stuck in the past, and those wooden cabinets just weren't cutting it. But instead of replacing perfectly good cupboards, I went for the budget-friendly way to completely transform this space: paint. I rolled on 2 coats of cabinet paint using a foam roller for a smooth finish. Using painter's tape to tape off the appliances was a lot easier than removing them. The doors were in great shape and only needed a light sanding. After the sanding was done, I wiped each down with plain water. I used a cabinet paint and the foam roller to paint the front and back of each door, and used a brush to get into the nooks and crannies. I ended up applying 4 coats of paint. Next was the kitchen island. We removed the top and the drawers and the doors. Here's a tip: when you remove the hardware, keep it all together in a labeled bowl or plastic bag. I wanted the island to look like its own piece of furniture, and the easiest way to do that was with beadboard. After measuring everything out, I tried to use my small circular saw to cut it, but it really ripped up the board. So I ended up using my trusty jigsaw. It was easy cutting from then on. After the beadboard was cut, I added adhesive first and then nailed the board to the island. I didn't need a lot of adhesive, but it gave me assurance that the beadboard wouldn't fall off. Now to paint. I could have painted the beadboard before I put it onto the island, but then I would have to go back and fill the nail holes and touch up the paint, so this was just easier. Sanding the island doors was very quick and easy, just like the cabinet doors. Here's a tip: line your painter's pan with aluminum foil for easy cleanup. I painted the island a darker shade than the cupboard to give it a nice contrast. I reattached the freshly painted doors and drawers. Then, using a cabinet hardware jig, I made the holes and inserted the simple knobs. Cabinets aren't the only thing I refreshed in here, but they definitely set the tone for the entire makeover. And wow, what a difference! I hope this inspires you to finally tackle that project you've been putting off. You never know how much it can transform your home until you go for it.
The problem for me was that this kitchen is in a waterfront condo, and I really wanted it to look a lot lighter and brighter and a bit coastal. Over the course of several days, I made some changes that allowed me to update the kitchen without having to undertake a total remodel. I cleaned the cabinets thoroughly. After that, I removed the cabinet pulls and then took the doors off of the hinges. This allowed me to paint the cabinets and the cabinet boxes. I painted them white, and the process was very quick and easy. Once I applied a few coats and allowed that to dry, I put the cabinets back in place, and the kitchen was looking brighter already. I wanted to personalize the pulls a bit, and I did so using some jute string. They felt nice, and I liked the natural and casual look of the pulls. It was a fun little afternoon project. After that, it was time for me to work on the dark granite countertops. It was nerve-wracking to think I was covering up a natural stone, but I really wanted to pursue the look I wanted. This project started with cleaning, lightly sanding, and then re-cleaning the counters. Next, I applied white paint from a marbling kit to the countertops. The first coat was sparse, then I let that dry. I applied a second coat, which covered a bit more, and since my counters were very dark and needed even more coverage, I applied a third coat as well. I have natural marble countertops in my home, and I used the look of those as inspiration for the counters in this condo. The veins aren't very sharp or distinct. There's more of a movement of grays through the stone. So I painted on the lines using the gray paint that came in the kit. Then I softened those lines. After I got those looking the way I wanted them to, I added the epoxy on top. I think it went really well and looked great. You can view more details on the process of foam marbling countertops by following me here on Hometalk, because I'll be releasing a more detailed tutorial on that showing all of the steps one by one. I replaced the black stove and microwave, but when it came to the dishwasher, I wanted to try something different. I purchased a silver peel and stick online. I wrapped the black dishwasher. This took about 5 minutes and transformed the look of the dishwasher and made the kitchen more cohesive. My dark wood and black kitchen was now transformed into a white and silver one. I love the way it looks, and I've decided I'm also going to update the backsplash with shiplap to continue with the white and coastal vibe. Stay tuned to see that project. I love the way this kitchen has changed. I wanted to upgrade this kitchen and make it look more elegant. I decided to fill in the space right above the existing cabinets. The space was 13 inches, so I bought some 12-inch cabinets to go above. I drilled holes into each corner of the cabinet tops. I did this because I wanted to add lighting to the cabinets. I purchased this set of lights that strings from one piece to the other and extends all throughout the different cabinets. I weaved them through the holes that I had drilled in the cabinetry, and already we were loving the way the lights looked. Once we had the cabinets set in the positions that we wanted, we simply screwed the cabinets down onto the existing cabinets. The next step was to add the doors. At first, I wanted the lighting to shine from the top down, so I used some glue dots just to hold them in place. I ultimately took them down and had them shining from the bottom because I didn't like the way the wires looked, but this is always something you can play with. Once the cabinets were secured in the places that we wanted them, we ran a bead of caulking in between the new cabinet and the old cabinet to try to make the look seamless. Just that addition of the cabinets really changed the way the kitchen looked. It made it look great. I really love the way that it elevates the look, and now I can add things up top to decorate.
I wanted an island for my kitchen, and I wanted it to have a stainless steel top, but to buy it, it was way too expensive, so I thought I'd make it myself. I started with a pre-cut pine board that I bought from Lowe's that was about the same size as the stainless steel film that I bought on Amazon. The board was a little bit longer, but I measured and cut off 3 inches. I wanted the stainless steel to wrap around the edges of the board. For the legs, I measured and cut 1x3 and 1x4 inch pine boards to 32 3/4 inches. Using wood glue and brad nails, I completed 4 legs. For the shelves, I cut 1x3 inch pine, making 2 boxes, which I glued and nailed in place. I made 2 of these shelves. I attached the legs to the outside of the bottom shelf. Then I flipped it upside down and attached the top shelf the exact same way. For the bottom shelf, I measured and cut 9 1x4 inch pine and glued and nailed them into place. For the sides of the island, I added 1x3 inch pine cut to form the shape of a V, and I glued and nailed them on each side. For the feet, I cut squares out of 1x3 and then attached casters to those squares. They were glued and nailed in place on the bottom of each leg. I laid the top in place and measured around to make sure that it was an equal distance. Then I nailed it in place. I carefully laid the film on top and smoothed it, pulling the film a little bit at a time and smoothing it into place. For the edges, I bent the film over the sides and stapled them in place. I folded the corners as you would wrap a gift and stapled those in place. I finished the island by staining and sealing all of the wood. It looks really great in my kitchen. I hope this inspires you to create a piece of furniture for your home.
Hello, and welcome to 48 Hour Flip. I'm Renee, and I'm going to show you how I am going to do a refresh on my kitchen in under 48 hours. Let's go. Our kitchen has great bones, but it just doesn't feel like me. I want it to feel like it's more than just for cooking and cleaning. The first thing that I'm going to do is to remove all of the hardware throughout the kitchen. This is so easy to do with just a screwdriver. Here is a great tip for spray painting hardware. I just poke holes in a cardboard box and screw on my hardware. This is a great way to hold my hardware up straight while I spray paint. While the cabinet hardware is drying, I'm going to start working on the island. I am using some craft paper and some frog tape. I be sure to tape off carefully anything that I don't want paint on. Here's a great tip. I use this glass cleaner to clean my woodworking projects first. Not only does it clean it, but it removes just enough of the finish so that the paint sticks well. I am using Dixie Belle paint for the island. It covers really well and leaves very little brush strokes in it. I will do 2 coats of the Dixie Belle paint on the island as the foundation. Here's a great tip. If you lightly mix with some water and brush over it, it removes the brush strokes. For this whitewash, I'm just using regular old wall paint and water. It mixes easily and I don't have to do a finish coat on top. Then using a paintbrush, I just paint it right on top of my paint. I don't have to be too neat and tidy with this because I'm going to be wiping most of it off. This is a fun and easy process. I'm leaving the paint in the corners and around the edges, and I'm also leaving some streaks on the larger areas to add character. Doesn't this hardware look gorgeous? I love the sparkle and the warmth that it adds to the room. And now it's time to tackle the shelves. I remove each one of the shelves with my drill. And using a spackle knife and some spackle, I repair the walls. Once the spackle is dry, I tape off all of my trim and paint the walls. And now it's time for the fun stuff, the accessories. I love vintage anything. This vintage shelf just makes my heart smile. I add vintage artwork above it, and I hang some vintage copper pots below. I put some cute little pots with ferns in the windowsills, and then I add cutting boards and a bit more greenery. To add a little bit more fun and detail, I add a boxwood wreath tied on with a buffalo check bow. Don't these bar stools look so amazing? I'm putting together these little topiaries. I love the topiaries themselves, but I didn't like the bucket that they were in. So I am placing them into a terracotta bucket, and again, I tie on a buffalo check ribbon. I continue to add a little bit of greenery and fun with accessories all around the kitchen. Here is the before and here is the after. Doesn't it look amazing? I love all of the greenery, the sparkle of the hardware, and the faux finish on the island.